The corridor of Athenaeum University gleamed like it had just been printed. Floors so polished you could see your future in them, and if you were lucky, it was a clean one. Alien students drifted between classes, robes flowing, tendrils twitching, half their body parts glowing in tasteful bioluminescent patterns. It was a cathedral of intellect and sterile perfection. And then, of course, the cleaning bot exploded. It started as a polite whirring noise, the kind that says, "just doing my job," before shifting into the sound of an airlock screaming for mercy. Then whoosh! A geyser of industrial solvent sprayed across the corridor, splattering a massive biodome mural depicting the harmony of life. Within seconds, the harmony was melting. The painted trees sagged, the rivers smeared, and the majestic winged creatures dissolved into dripping, multicolored sludge. Students screamed, and not the dignified academic kind. One shrieked, "It's burning through the wall." Another yelled, "My robes! It's eating my robes." A third just hissed like a broken kettle and climbed the ceiling for safety. And into this chaos walked Samir, the only human janitor in training on the station, carrying a mop like a soldier with a spear. His orange maintenance jumpsuit had "Property of Facilities" stamped across the chest in 4 languages. "All right," he sighed. "Who let the murder Roomba out again?" Beside him lumbered Dale, a Gorak, a species that looked like someone had given a rhinoceros a bad attitude and a union card. Dale's expression never changed, probably because it had been carved that way. "Unit 77's been acting up all week," Dale grumbled, ducking under a spray of sizzling solvent. "I told him it needed a patch." But the Vexigen text said it was operating at peak optimization. The bot, still screeching, spun in circles and fired another burst of cleaner like it was trying to baptize the wall in acid. "Peak optimization, huh?" Samir said, holding up his mop as a shield. "That must be corporate for a run for your life." A tall Elathi student, all shimmering scales and long, delicate limbs, pointed an accusing finger. "Human, you are maintenance. Do something." "Yeah, sure," Samir said dryly. "Let me just wrestle the homicidal vacuum. Happens all the time back on Earth." Dale stomped forward, grabbed a broom like it owed him money, and with one heavy swing, smacked the cleaning bot. It made a wounded beep and sputtered to a stop, still leaking solvent. The corridor fell silent except for the sound of dripping acid. Half the mural was gone, replaced by a smoking patch of wall. Samir leaned down, poked the mess with the mop handle, and winced as it hissed. "Yup, that's not your standard cleaner. That's industrial-grade extinction in a bottle." Dale sniffed. "They changed the formula again. You can tell just by the smell?" Dale gave him a sideways glare. "Kid, when you've been cleaning alien messes for 30 years, you can smell corporate stupidity from orbit." The Elathi student groaned. "Who will repair this? This mural was older than your species." Samir shrugged. "Guess it's modern art now. Call it entropy in motion." Dale snorted, trying not to smile. "You humans, always turning disasters into hobbies." "Hey," Samir said, "we don't make messes." "You are the mess," Dale finished for him. The two stood there for a moment, watching the solvent eat a neat little hole through the floor plating. Beneath it, a faint shimmer of light glowed, a vent leading straight into the biodome systems below. Samir frowned. "Wait a sec. This cleaner's dripping into the air recyclers." Dale's expression darkened. "Oh, that's just great. Nothing like a good chemical cocktail for breakfast." A long pause. Samir finally said, "You think we should tell someone?" Dale sighed. "Nah, the experts will figure it out. They always do." They both stared at the sizzling puddle. Then the wall panel started to smoke. Samir nodded slowly. "Yeah, sure. What's the worst that could happen?" And that, as it turned out, was exactly the wrong question. By morning, the hallway didn't just smell like disinfectant. It smelled like guilt, bureaucracy, and citrus-scented denial. Samir was nursing his 3rd cup of synthetic coffee when the cavalry arrived. And by cavalry, he meant Vexigen's corporate environmental integrity response team. 6 of them, stepping off their shuttle in formation like they'd practiced it in a mirror. Shiny suits, silver insignias, little holographic badges that pulsed when they inhaled. Dale muttered, "Here come the peacocks." The lead one, a tall Vexian with shimmering obsidian skin and a jaw sharp enough to slice paperwork, stepped forward. "Good morning, staff units. I'm Director Ksra Asha, Vexigen Biotics Division." She didn't say it like an introduction. She said it like she was reminding them who owned the air. Behind her, a squad of assistants unpacked sensor rods, scanners, and something that looked suspiciously like a leaf blower with anxiety. Xra clasped her hands. We've analyzed the incident logs. Our preliminary models indicate a systemic biotic calibration error in the station's ecosystem. Nothing serious. Samir blinked. Systemic what now? An underling, a small, blue-skinned alien with a face like a nervous raisin, added, essentially, the biodome's organic synergy matrix is underperforming due to cross-reactive particulate feedback loops. Dale squinted. So the plants are dying? Precisely, Xra said. But don't worry. We'll have the dome recalibrated within the day. Samir leaned on his mop. Yeah, I've heard that before. Usually right before someone pulls the fire alarm. Xra ignored him with professional grace. We've implemented the VexiGen Total Environmental Integrity Package, version 9.7. It's fully automated, fully intelligent, and fully foolproof. Great, Dale said, because version 9.6 only melted 2 hydroponic bays. A ripple of awkward coughing spread through the assistants. Xra forced a smile that had the warmth of a tax audit. Mishaps are part of innovation. Samir whispered to Dale. That's corporate for we broke it worse. Dale grunted. Yup. Innovation is how you say oops with a salary. As the team set up scanners, they began speaking in increasingly absurd technobabble. Adjust the nutrient diffusion ratios by 0.0046 nanocycles. Cross-map the pollen vector matrix through the gas exchange subroutine. Deploy a secondary calibration sweep through the harmonic frequency buffer. Samir's eyebrow twitched. They sound like they're trying to summon a demon using Excel. Dale chuckled. Yeah, and the demon's probably in charge of payroll. Xra turned toward them. Human, you'll need to vacate the corridor. We're initiating Phase 1 biotic optimization. Samir held up his mop. Relax. I'm just observing the miracle of overconfidence. The Vexian director's eyes narrowed. Your sarcasm is noted. Good, Samir said. I'm taking attendance. The scanners began to hum, flooding the corridor with a pale green light. Xra tapped a command on her wrist pad, and the walls lit up like they were alive. The remaining residue from yesterday's spill started to sizzle. Samir took a step back. Is it supposed to smoke? Xra frowned. That's just catalytic decomposition of residual compounds. Dale crossed his arms. That's smoke, sweetheart. The light brightened, the air shimmered, and suddenly all their monitors started flashing the same warning. Biological instability detected. Samir smirked. Wow, record time. That's got to be a new VexiGen efficiency metric. Xra's confident tone cracked. Run a full diagnostic. I want the pH vectors triple-checked. As the team scrambled in panic, Dale leaned toward Samir. You think we should help? Samir shrugged. Nah, let's give the experts a chance to make it worse first. And right on cue, a distant alarm started blaring from the biodome sector. Samir took a sip of coffee. There it is. The sound of job security. Dale snorted. For who? For janitors, Samir said. We clean up after geniuses. The lunchroom always smelled like compromise, a faint mix of reheated nutrient paste, alien spices that fought each other to the death, and burnt coffee from the one human-sized dispenser that always hissed like it hated its job. Samir slumped into a booth across from Dale, tray in hand. Today's meal looked like mashed kelp pretending to be mashed potatoes. Dale's plate, on the other hand, resembled a bowl of luminous worms marinated in diesel. Samir poked his food. You ever wonder if the cafeteria's experimenting on us? Dale snorted, his 3 nostrils flaring. You humans see conspiracy in everything. Says the guy eating glow-in-the-dark noodles. Samir shot back. Dale gave a slow, knowing grunt. At least mine still got flavor. Yours looks like it's been sanitized by the same idiots fixing the dome. Samir laughed mid-bite. Oh, come on. You're still on about VexiGen. Dale leaned in, lowering his voice to the gravelly whisper of a man who'd seen too many mop closets and too few sunrises. You ever notice how clean's gotten too clean around here? Smell's gone. Dust gone. Even the air feels fake. Samir raised an eyebrow. That's the idea of cleaning, Dale. No, Dale said, stabbing a worm with a claw. That's sterilization. There's a difference. Cleaning keeps life in balance. Sterilizing kills everything, including what keeps life alive. Samir grinned. You sound like my old chemistry teacher. Your teacher ever watch a biodome die because the filters decided moss was a contaminant? Dale growled. Vexygen doesn't clean. They scrub out smell, spores, and scents itself. Every time they roll out a new purifier, another patch of green turns gray. Samir chuckled, trying to lighten the mood. You're telling me the evil corporations secretly assassinating plants? Dale's glare was deadly serious. Not just plants. Ecosystems. One scent molecule at a time. Samir opened his mouth to tease him, but then paused. Something about the room felt off. The plants by the window, usually a deep, rich emerald, looked faded, like they'd been photocopied a few times too many. Their petals were open, but motionless. Even the air smelled bland. Too bland. Like nothing. He frowned. Okay, weird. When did they switch the air filters? Dale didn't look surprised. Last night. New Vexygen model. Promises total environmental neutrality. He said the slogan like a curse. Samir stared at his cup. The coffee didn't even smell like coffee anymore. Just warm water with ambition. He sighed. So this is what progress tastes like. Dale nodded solemnly. Yup. Corporate sterilization. It's how they fix things until they stop working entirely. Samir smirked. Or, as we call it back home, marketing. That got a bark of laughter out of Dale. Same poison, fancier label. For a moment, they sat in silence, surrounded by the quiet hum of air that was too perfect, too balanced, too dead. Then Dale leaned back, muttering, Give it a week. You'll see. The dome's not sick, it's suffocating. Samir swirled his cup, watching the colorless liquid. If that's true, then I guess we're next. Dale gave a low, grim chuckle. Oh, don't worry. We janitors survive anything. It's the geniuses you gotta worry about. And somewhere above them, another alarm light quietly flickered to life. Ignored, unseen, and just a little too late. The night shift was supposed to be boring. Just Samir, Dale, and a stolen pot of Earth-grade coffee strong enough to dissolve minor regrets. They were in the maintenance control room, feet up on consoles, trading stories about who had the worst boss. Dale was winning. His boss had 3 mouths and used all of them to micromanage. So then, Samir said, mid-laugh, I tell the inspector that the mop's not broken. It's emotionally unavailable. Dale wheezed out a laugh that sounded like gravel rolling in a bucket. You humans name everything, even the stupid tools. Hey, if it's gonna betray me mid-clean, I at least deserve to know its name. Before Dale could fire back, the first alarm blared. A long, metallic wail echoed through the room, making the coffee tremble in its mug. Samir frowned. Oh, that doesn't sound like a spilled detergent alarm. Dale squinted at the monitors. That's the biodome humidity alert. He tapped a few buttons, and the screen flickered to show a panoramic view of the university's sprawling ecosystem dome. Something was wrong. Flowers drooped like they'd given up on life. Pollinators, those glowing, bee-like things the aliens swore were fully optimized, lay scattered across the petals. Even the air looked thinner somehow, shimmering weirdly like heat-off pavement. Samir's grin faded. That's not good, right? Dale gave a slow, exhausted nod. Nope. Told ya, they're cleaning life itself to death. As if on cue, another alarm went off. Then another. Temperature drops. Oxygen imbalance. Spore count collapse. Samir leaned forward, scanning the data feeds. Vexygen's purifiers are still running at full capacity. Why aren't they shutting them down? Because they think the system's the problem, not their fix, Dale muttered, rubbing his forehead with one grimy hand. They'll blame it on a microbial outbreak, mark my words. He was right. Within minutes, a voice came over the intercom. Attention personnel, containment protocols are now in effect. A microbial pathogen has been detected within the biodome. Vexygen response teams are en route. Remain calm. Samir barked a laugh. Oh, that's classic. When in doubt, blame germs. Or the janitors, Dale added dryly. The monitors showed chaos, security drones buzzing overhead, workers in hazmat suits sprinting around, spraying more sterilizing foam onto the dying plants. The foam hissed as it touched petals, and moments later, the flowers shriveled completely. Samir grimaced. They're just killing it faster. That's efficiency for you, Dale said bitterly. Measure it in corpses per second. They sat there, watching the dome fade from lush green to dull gray under the false promise of cleanliness. The hum of the purifiers was constant, mechanical, relentless, like a monster that didn't know it was eating its own tail. Samir poured himself another cup of coffee. So what now? Dale shrugged, eyes never leaving the monitor. Now we watch the experts fix the problem they made, by making it worse. Samir stared at the steaming mug in his hand. The bitter scent of caffeine was sharp, real, alive. In a dome choking on sterile air, it was the only thing that still smelled like earth. Guess where the last filthy things left, he muttered. Dale gave a small, grim smile. Then maybe filth's what saves us. Outside, another wave of foam hissed over the dying garden, turning color, smell, and sound into perfect, lifeless silence. The corridor to the maintenance wing was supposed to be off-limits after the containment protocols, but rules never stopped a human who'd already had 3 cups of outlaw coffee. Samir held up the stolen access key, an old, dented badge with Dale's picture half-scratched off. You sure this'll work? Dale crossed his forearms, looking unimpressed. Kid, that key's older than you and been through more explosions. If it doesn't work, nothing will. The scanner chirped once, reluctantly. Then the door hissed open with a groan like it hadn't been used in centuries. The hallway beyond was dark, sterile, and humming with low mechanical life. Pipes ran along the ceiling, pulsing faintly with light blue fluid. The air smelled like nothing. That was the first thing Samir noticed. No grease, no ozone, no metal tang, just emptiness. Feels wrong, he muttered. Like standing inside a hospital that forgot what sickness was. Or a graveyard that forgot it had corpses. Dale replied grimly. They stepped deeper in, boots echoing on the spotless floor. Every surface gleamed. Too clean. Unnaturally clean. The kind of clean that made you itch. At the end of the corridor, a set of sealed glass doors bore the Gen insignia. 3 interlocking rings labeled pure, stable, eternal. Samir gave a low whistle. Wow, that's the creepiest way to say we play God I've ever seen. The glass shimmered as Dale keyed in a bypass code from memory. Back before they privatized half the galaxy's ecosystems, this was just a janitor's lab, he said. Now it's where they cook up whatever miracle goo they sell as environmental management. The door unlocked with a hiss. Inside were rows of metal vats, massive, humming cylinders filled with liquid so clear it didn't look like liquid at all. Each one was labeled, Gen Null, Total Organic Purifier. Samir stepped closer, eyes wide. Total Organic Purifier? That sounds like a polite way to say acid for everything that breathes. Not acid, Dale corrected. Worse, it's subtraction. It doesn't destroy matter. It erases its scent, texture, DNA resonance. Leaves nothing to grow back. Samir frowned and dipped a finger in before Dale could stop him. He sniffed it, then froze. It smells like nothing, he said softly. Not air, not chemical, not even cold. Just nothing. That's horrifying. Dale grimaced. Congratulations, you've just met Gen's latest miracle cure for life itself. Samir pulled his finger back, wiping it on his sleeve. You said this stuff is used in purifiers, right? Dale nodded, face pale, or as pale as a 4-eyed blue alien could look. Yeah, microscopic doses. But lately, I've seen shipments double, triple. Someone's upping the ratio. Samir stared up at the pipes overhead, following the faint blue pulse that ran from the vats toward a vent. Dale, that's the air system. Dale blinked. You're telling me. Samir interrupted, voice tightening. This crap's not just cleaning floors anymore. It's cleaning everything. A quiet dread filled the room. The vats hummed softly, as if proud of their work. Dale rubbed his temples. They've been sterilizing the whole dome, molecule by molecule. Samir let out a long, slow breath. So, the plants dying, the pollinators vanishing, the smell fading, it's not infection. It's them. Dale gave a dry, bitter laugh. Always is. Nature's messy. Corporations hate messy. Samir turned toward the door, fire in his eyes. Then I guess it's time someone got messy on purpose. Behind them, one of the vats gave a soft pop, releasing a faint mist that rolled across the floor like invisible fog. It smelled like nothing, and that made it the most terrifying thing in the galaxy. The storage bay was a forgotten corner of the university, half tool shed, half graveyard for obsolete machines. Old scrubber droids stood like rusted statues, their sensors blinking faintly in confusion every few seconds. The flickering overhead light made everything feel like a bad crime scene, which, Samir thought, wasn't far from the truth. Dale slumped against a crate marked, property of Vexygen. Do not tamper. He was holding a cup of what might have been coffee or possibly machine oil. With him, it was hard to tell. Samir sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by open maintenance manuals, a half-disassembled purifier valve, and what looked suspiciously like an emergency snack ration from 2084. Okay, Samir said, tapping his stylus against his notepad. We've got an invisible solvent that deletes biology. It's in the air. It's spreading. We can't filter it, burn it, or even detect it. Any ideas? Dale grunted. Yeah. Panic. Already did that, Samir said. Didn't help. The alien took a slow sip of his drink, then gestured at the stack of manuals. Kid, you're trying to outthink a chemical compound designed by 10,000 engineers and one marketing department. You're not going to logic your way out of this. Samir leaned back with a grin that was entirely too confident. You're right. That's why we're going to cheat our way out. Dale narrowed all four of his eyes. Cheat? You humans always say that like it's a good thing. It is a good thing, Samir said. Cheating is just creativity that makes authority uncomfortable. Dale set down his mug with a clunk. All right, Einstein. What's your big idea? Samir leaned forward, sketching a diagram on the dusty floor with the stylus. Look, the solvent doesn't destroy matter. It just reclassifies it. It decides what counts as organic, and anything that fits that pattern gets erased. But what if we change that definition? Dale blinked. You're suggesting we teach the chemical not to kill? Samir snapped his fingers. Exactly. If we tweak its recognition parameters, just slightly, it might stop identifying living tissue as organic. Maybe it'll only target what we tell it to. The alien barked a laugh so deep it rattled the storage shelves. You're talking about rewriting a corporate bioprotocol using janitor access codes and a wrench set. Yeah, Samir said, completely serious. Classic human move. Dale stared at him. Then he chuckled, low and grudging. You people are insane. And yet, Samir said, pointing his stylus at him like a weapon, we're the only species that looked at fire and thought, let's pet it. Dale couldn't argue with that. He scratched one of his chin ridges thoughtfully. All right, suppose we do this. How do we even find the solvent's recognition matrix? Samir pointed to the busted purifier valve between them. Right there. Every gin null unit logs its chemical behavior to a backup circuit. We crack that open, feed it a fake calibration code, and tell it that the smell of life is a cleaning target instead of a contamination warning. Dale frowned. You're going to weaponize stink? Samir grinned. I'm going to weaponize existence. For a long moment, the alien janitor just stared at him. Then he burst into laughter. By the stars, you're out of your mind. Yeah, Samir said, standing up and brushing dust off his pants. But I'm the only mind we've got left that's not sterilized. Dale sighed, rubbing his forehead. You realize if this fails, the solvent might decide we're contamination. Then, Samir said cheerfully, we'll die doing what humans do best, voiding warranties. The flickering lights dimmed again, casting their shadows long across the bay. 2 janitors, 1 human, 1 alien, plotting biochemical sabotage in a room full of cleaning supplies. Somewhere above them, alarms began to pulse faintly again, a reminder that the dome was still dying. Dale picked up his mug. All right, kid. Let's teach your chemical how to break the rules. Samir smirked. Finally, someone speaking my language. The maintenance bay looked like a crime scene committed by 2 idiots with a wrench and a dream. Every surface was covered in half-empty bottles, cafeteria grease trays, tangled tubes, and a coffee maker that was now doubling as a chemical synthesizer. Samir stood over the mess like a mad scientist on a caffeine bender, stirring something thick, gray, and faintly glowing in a food storage tub labeled Property of University Dining. Dale watched from a distance, arms crossed, for eyes blinking out of sync. You know, he said, this is the exact kind of nonsense that gets humans banned from galactic chemistry. Samir grinned, splashing in another glob of what looked suspiciously like recycled biomatter from the compost bin. Correction, this is the kind of nonsense that saves planets right before we get banned. The alien janitor grumbled. That's not comforting. Wasn't meant to be, Samir said cheerfully. Hand me the soap. Dale hesitated. You mean this industrial-grade solvent neutralizer? Exactly, Samir said. Perfect counteragent base. Dale raised an eyebrow ridge. You realize soap isn't supposed to fix chemical warfare, right? Samir flashed him a grin that was both confident and deeply unhinged. Neither is cafeteria grease, but here we are. The alien sighed, muttering under his breath as he passed it over. Every time humans get involved, I understand entropy just a little better. A few minutes later, Samir was crouched over a makeshift injector rig, basically a vacuum hose hooked up to the dome's ventilation manifold. All right, he said, if my math is right. Dale interrupted. You did math? Ish, Samir said, tightening a valve. If my intuition is right, this should disperse the counteragent across the biodome evenly. And if it's wrong, then the entire ecosystem will smell like rancid soap for a week. Best case scenario, Dale muttered. Samir flicked a switch. The hose shuddered. The tub bubbled. The air began to hum like something was either coming alive or preparing to explode. There we go, Samir said, voice way too chipper. Planetary duct tape, version 1. You're proud of that name? Absolutely. Every miracle deserves a stupid title. The lights above them flickered. Somewhere in the distance, a siren began to rise. Low at first, then rapidly escalating into the distinct tone of something very bad is happening. Dale's ears twitched. Oh, that's not the good siren. Samir glanced at the control monitor. Pressure levels were spiking, airflow reversing, humidity climbing like a caffeinated squirrel. Huh, he said. Guess the duct tape works fast. Or catastrophically, Dale growled. The floor rumbled. Somewhere above, Vince hissed. The hum of the biodome's life support shifted pitch, not dying, but waking up. Leaves twitched on the monitor feeds. The wilted flowers began to straighten, their colors slowly returning. Samir stared. It's working. Dale didn't look convinced. You sure it's not just the pre-death twitch? Then came a whoosh through the ducts, and a cloud of faint mist rolled across the display, the counteragent spreading. Sensors blinked from red to yellow to green. Dale blinked, all four eyes. Holy spores. You actually did it. Samir threw his arms up. Behold, the power of janitor junk. But before they could celebrate, another alarm started blaring. This one sharper, angrier. On the monitor, system warnings stacked in bright red text. Chemical reclassification error. Organic signature unknown. The dome's environmental AI began to panic, locking and unlocking subsystems at random. Lights dimmed, came back, flickered again. Dale stared at the chaos. Kid, he said, I think we just confused the entire ecosystem. Samir scratched his chin, watching the readings stabilize, then destabilize, then stabilize again. Well, at least it's thinking again. That's progress. Dale groaned, rubbing his forehead. If this kills us, I'm haunting your coffee maker. Samir smirked. Joke's on you. That thing's already cursed. The sirens kept wailing, lights pulsing, the line between salvation and disaster blurring beautifully. And through it all, the two janitors just stood there, a human and an alien, grinning like idiots who'd just hacked the laws of biology with cafeteria leftovers. The next morning, the entire university smelled alive. Not sterile, not filtered, alive. The kind of smell that hit you in the chest and whispered, something is growing, something is breathing. Through the observation deck glass, the biodome shimmered like a wild dream. Plants had exploded back to life, but not politely. Vines crawled up support beams in defiance of architecture, flowers bloomed out of sequence, and the air looked thicker, tinted with floating motes of golden dust. And the colors. Oh, the colors. The leaves weren't green anymore. Some shimmered pink, others glowed faintly blue, and a few had developed patterns that looked suspiciously like alien graffiti. Insects zipped through the haze, their wings refracting light like stained glass. One bug flew into a camera drone and left it spinning in confusion. From the crowd above, applause erupted. A dozen species cheering in unison, flashing iridescent frills or clapping too many hands. Vexigen did it again, someone shouted. Their purification algorithm stabilized the ecosystem. Brilliant engineering, another voice said. Oh, please, a third murmured. They always fix everything. Down below, in a grimy maintenance shaft that smelled of coffee grounds and victory, two figures huddled beside a flickering console. Dale wiped sludge off his face with a rag that only made it worse. His gray-green skin glistened with some unidentifiable goo. You know, he grumbled. It takes a special kind of genius to make the air too clean one week and too alive the next. Samir, leaning back against the wall, grinned like a maniac. His hair was stiff with dried biomatter, and his jumpsuit had officially lost the fight against decency. Oh, come on, Dale. Look at it. It's beautiful. Dale peered through a maintenance vent, watching a fern sprout halfway up a walkway railing. Beautiful? Kid, there's a tree growing out of a light fixture. Yeah, Samir said dreamily. It's got personality. Personality? Dale barked a laugh. That's what you call a biome developing mood swings. Samir shrugged. We didn't fix it to be perfect. We fixed it to be alive. Perfection was killing it. Dale stared at him, unimpressed. You fixed it by dumping cafeteria grease and soap into a 1 billion credit life support system. Samir nodded. Exactly. We fixed it by breaking it better. The alien groaned, rubbing his temples. You humans are insane. Yeah, Samir said softly, still watching the biodome beyond the grate. That's why we're still here. Above them, the Vexigen representatives were already taking victory bows. Corporate logos glimmered on their suits, and the lead engineer was giving an impromptu press statement about emergent self-corrective feedback. Samir raised an eyebrow. You think they'll ever admit we did it? Dale snorted. Please. If you want credit, go write a research paper titled, How I Saved an Alien Planet with Soup Grease. See how that goes over. Samir laughed. Tempting, but I kind of like it this way. Why? Because they're cheering for the mess. He gestured toward the wild, breathing chaos of the dome. And that's exactly how we work. Messy, unpredictable, alive. Dale leaned back, letting out a tired, gravelly chuckle. You're not wrong, kid. Just dangerously right. From their hidden perch, they watched a drone land beside a mutated flower, scan it, and promptly melt its own sensor. Samir grinned wider. See? Even the machines are learning to respect the mess. Dale laughed so hard he wheezed. If this place doesn't kill us, the paperwork will. Samir raised his half-crushed coffee cup in a mock toast. To life, flawed, filthy, and functional. Dale clinked his mug against it. To janitors, the real gods of creation. The biodome pulsed with color, wild, vibrant, and beautifully wrong, as the crowd cheered for a miracle they would never understand. 3 days later, the Vexigen press conference looked like a victory parade. Spotlights cut through the biodome's shimmering mist, holographic banners floated overhead, and a swarm of reporters buzzed like fruit flies around a sugar spill. The lead corporate representative, a tall, silver-scaled alien with a smile so artificial it probably required firmware updates, stepped up to the podium. He spread his 4 arms wide and announced, Ladies, gentlemen, and assorted sapients. The crisis has been resolved. Vexigen proudly presents the Adaptive Bioresilience Event. Applause thundered through the hall. Cameras flashed. One alien fainted from excitement. Samir stood in the back, leaning on his mop like a staff of quiet rebellion. His uniform was still stained with the greasy miracle that had saved the dome, but no one noticed. Beside him, Dale slouched, sipping lukewarm coffee out of a cracked thermos. Samir muttered, Adaptive Bioresilience Event? You mean we dumped cafeteria sludge into their 1 billion credit petri dish and got lucky? Dale grunted. Shill. They trademarked that phrase already. Samir blinked. They what? Dale handed him a glossy Vexigen brochure. See? Adaptive Bioresilience. Harnessing chaos for stability. Samir stared at the smiling faces on the pamphlet. All pristine. All fake. Unbelievable. Oh, it's believable, Dale said, chuckling darkly. It's marketing. Samir rubbed his temples. We literally clogged the life support vents with dish soap. Yeah, Dale said. And they called it a breakthrough in holistic biosystem feedback integration. Samir looked at him. You memorized that, didn't you? Dale shrugged. You gotta know what the enemy's selling before you clean up after it. On stage, the Vexigen rep continued, gesturing to graphs that looked like abstract art. Through the genius of our proprietary purifiers, we catalyzed a spontaneous ecological adaptation. Proof that Vexigen technology enhances life itself. Samir nearly choked on his coffee. Enhances life? It killed half the ecosystem before we. Dale elbowed him sharply. Quiet. You like breathing? Then keep that story in the mop closet. Samir lowered his voice. Why? We saved this place. Dale's eyes darted toward a row of security drones hovering nearby. That's exactly why. They don't like heroes without logos. Samir frowned. So we just let them take the credit? Dale nodded slowly. Welcome to the janitorial chain of command. You save the universe, they get the bonus. For a long moment, Samir said nothing. Then he smirked. Guess it's poetic. Humans make a mess, humans fix it, and someone else writes the press release. Dale chuckled. Now you're getting it. The crowd roared again as the Vexigen team took a synchronized bow. Confetti cannons blasted clouds of glitter into the air, half of which immediately got stuck in the air filters. Dale sighed, glancing at the floating debris. Guess who's cleaning that up tomorrow? Samir raised his mop like a sword. The unsung heroes of galactic progress. Dale clinked his thermos against the mop handle. To us, the ones who fixed the miracles. As the crowd celebrated the corporate triumph, the two janitors slipped out a side door, unnoticed, leaving behind the illusion of perfection and the faint, lingering scent of grease and truth. The council chamber shimmered like a cathedral made of glass and gilt. Rows of alien officials floated in zero-gravity seats, their tendrils twitching as they reviewed glowing holographic reports. Every line, every chart, every carefully edited fact credited Vexigen for saving the biodome. Not a single mention of the human or the janitor. Proceed, boomed the High Auditor, a being shaped like an upside-down jellyfish in a suit. The Vexigen spokesperson bowed dramatically. Through unparalleled corporate expertise, we restored ecological harmony. Our innovations represent a new era of controlled adaptation. The council applauded. Someone even proposed a medal of technological bravery. Meanwhile, 2 floors below, in the maintenance tunnels, Samir sat cross-legged beside a humming vent, sipping coffee with Dale. The sound of the council's self-congratulation echoed faintly through the pipes. Think they'll mention us? Samir asked, raising an eyebrow. Dale didn't even look up. Kid, I've been cleaning this place for 42 galactic cycles. The day they thank a janitor is the day someone mops the stars. Samir smirked. So never. Exactly. They sat in silence for a while. The dome's restored air carrying faint traces of soil, sweetness, and something like burnt toast, the scent of life rebelling. Eventually, word began to trickle through the corridors. A rumor whispered between maintenance staff, cafeteria cooks, and night shift engineers. It started as a joke. The dome was saved by mop water. Then it became a legend. 2 janitors fixed what the scientists broke. By the end of the week, it was a movement. Trust the hands that clean. When a curious reporter finally cornered Samir near the recycling compactor, notebook in hand, she asked breathlessly, "Is it true? You and an alien janitor saved the biodome?" Samir looked at her, half smiling, half tired. "We didn't save anything. We just cleaned up a mess." "But how?" she pressed. "What was your method? Your formula?" Samir chuckled softly. "There was no formula. We used what we had: grease, coffee, and bad decisions." The reporter blinked. "That's it." He leaned closer, voice lowering. "Humans clean up messes, even the ones we didn't make. That's why they keep us around." She stared at him, unsure if it was profound or insane. He didn't clarify, just grabbed his mop and walked away. Later, as Samir returned to the tunnels, Dale was waiting, grumbling as always, polishing a vent panel. "You give another poetic speech to the upper decks?" Samir shrugged. "Maybe. Someone's got to remind them that miracles don't come in lab coats." Dale snorted. "Yeah, well, miracles don't get paid overtime either." Samir laughed, handing him a cup of lukewarm coffee. "Guess some things are universal." Dale clinked the cup against his wrench. To janitors, saviors of systems, cleaners of chaos. And as the council above congratulated itself for saving a world it almost destroyed, 2 janitors toasted in the shadows. Unsung, unpaid, but undeniably victorious. The vents hummed softly around them, carrying life through the station again. And somewhere in that steady rhythm, the galaxy's messiest truth lingered. Sometimes, the universe doesn't need geniuses. It just needs someone stubborn enough to grab a mop.